We're finally here. Cyberpunk 2077. I'm told that some of you have been waiting for this game for the better part of a decade, which, in retrospect, might not have been such a great idea. But hey, live and learn. CD Projekt's grand sci-fi extravaganza is here, so let's get into it. Firstly, this little fireside chat is going to contain some spoilers. Now, we're not going to get way down into the weeds here as far as the precise details of the narrative and CDPR's surprisingly good handle on metaphor. I'm planning to do another video about this game in probably 6 months. Let's all be honest, this is a safe place. The game isn't actually done yet. So there will be more details uncovered and more positive experiences to sift through as people pick up discounted copies and flesh out the video game cultural gestalt that will encompass this game for a while. Secondly, I'm not going to spend 20 minutes of your day harping on the technical issues that are present in this game. And they are present. I am not trying to gloss over them or excuse them. You know it. I know it. Stop it. I said get! We have the context that, 1, this is a big ambitious game, and big ambitious open world games tend to be a level of buggy we refer to as Bethesda-esque, and 2, the last year of development, arguably the time when the polishing and QA aspects of a game like this really kick into top gear, has been somewhat derailed by, well, gesturing broadly at everything. So keep that in mind as a starting point. Cyberpunk is a crucial genre, historically. It juxtaposes both more hopeful and more overtly apocalyptic sci-fi subgenres. The focus is on style. Style is a metaphor for the flashy aesthetics that have replaced substance in a world without substance. Style is a representation of individuality, ironic individuality, a million unique consumers all consuming identically.
Turned your great spot into a slurp shop.
Mindless fucking consumerism wins the day again.
Cyberpunk depicts a future that isn't dark because of its futureness, but because of its pastness. It is the embodiment of industrial dogmas clashing with digital realities. We face fancier versions of the same problems with the technology to make more catastrophic errors. It is the endgame of the representations of humanity's selfishness, short-sightedness, hubris, and greed. The quandaries these failures precipitate go well beyond things as relatively straightforward as the irresponsible use of technology, and instead utilizes that technology and its effects to examine more fundamental human questions. What manner of intelligence constitutes sapient life? Can a program be a person? How do we grapple with the reality of our own non-existence? What is the soul? Is the mind the soul? Can it be converted into data and preserved? Or have you just created a computer program, a facsimile that believes it contiguous? What atrocities and abuses are we willing to commit to gain mastery of life and death and to try to answer these questions? Should we live forever? Do we deserve to? The cyberpunk genre combines our highest highs and our lowest lows as a species. A technologically advanced race of cybernetically enhanced superhumans, capable of helping the needy, curing the sick, and living happily, but who don't do any of those things. We're a people that have ruined our biosphere, sold our souls, and are still racked by the suffering and divide that have stricken us forever. It's like RoboCop. The world isn't over, it's just kind of shitty now. Great job, everybody. It's nice to see the jersey's the same, though. 2077 does a great job using that burned up, washed out, desertified hollow of people's moral failures to try to tell a story of moral discovery, and potentially one of moral and ethical self-realization. Let's talk about quests. Missions in RPGs make or break the game. I rather like the quests in Cyberpunk. Yeah, there are a good amount of side jobs that are basically a go here, kill this loot fest, but there are quite a few others that task you with objectives that can be approached in different ways, solved in unique ways other than what the mission parameters state at first. Or they can branch and continue parallel to a good amount of the game's narrative. There are characters who can live or die, and you might not even notice until your next playthrough. Rewards that can be completely overlooked, branching quest paths that can be ignored and closed completely if you aren't trying to actually figure out what's going on, and a healthy amount of attribute or backstory based dialogue and quest bonuses. Take, for example, this quest that I'm about to show you. I choose it because it's straightforward and doesn't have a continuation past this interaction. It's the best way I can demonstrate what I'm talking about in as small of a spoiler as I can manage. A woman tasks you with retrieving a hard drive containing sensitive information stolen by some body choppers near Kabuki Market. So, you go get it, whether you sneak past them and grab it or you absolutely eviscerate them because they're murderous organ harvesters for whom you are judge, jury, and executioner. Upon finding this data disk, you discover it's encrypted, and depending on how much of a busy little bee you are, you can crack it open and look inside, or leave it be. If you leave it be, all is well. You get paid for your professional candor and discretion, and you're on to your next adventure. Or you can crack it open and discover that your friend here is a hotshot hacktivist who's been sabotaging one of the biggest companies in Night City to prevent them from using an AI to subconsciously condition people to alter their thoughts and behaviors. Armed with this information, you then have several other dialogue options. Trying to blackmail her with this information, leading to a shootout, offering her your congratulations for sticking it to the man, netting you a larger reward than not looking in the first place, or, if your intelligence is high enough, dorking out over her hacking strats, netting you an even higher reward than that. This is all incredibly irrelevant in the grand scheme, but it was pretty nice to see even a basic errand-type quest having a little tech put into diversifying its outcome. All these quests serve to give definition to your conception of your character. Pseudonym V, a mercenary rising in fame in Night City, whose goal is to become one of the legendary figures in the underground. This is all just one big cyberpunky metaphor for legacy, the expression of a lasting impact in a world whose symbolism revolves around decay, chaos, and flavor of the day forgetfulness. I'm not going to tell you that your choices on every little thing matter to the world as a whole, but they do have character and interpersonal connotations that are somewhat touching and interesting. If you treat your friends and cohorts like an asshole, they're not going to want to talk to you about certain things, and you're going to miss out on some stuff. Likewise, other characters have reasonable motivations and reactions. Silverhand isn't a violent dickhead for no reason. He's actually a very compelling PTSD study. The people in the world aren't pragmatists or monsters for no reason. Your quest givers, cohorts, and incidental acquaintances aren't schlocky villains and heroes. They're people trying to survive. People trying, sometimes ignorantly or harmfully, to make the world a better place. Or just to make their lives have meaning. A lot of them are absolute dickheads, but a lot of people I know are dickheads, so A for realism. Many of them are just kind of interesting, and they help to flesh out the overall experience. The closest thing you have to a classic mindless Mad Max-style Nitro Viking or cyber creep are Maelstrom and random scavengers. While the scavs seem to fill the niche of the Fallout Raider or the dime-a-dozen RPG Highwaymen, Maelstrom are freaks and actually kinda cool. They're a sect of cyborg fetishists who are into extreme body modification and using heavy metal transhumanism to achieve reasonable goals, like get rich, do drugs, and fuck shit up. I think that's a pretty contiguous thread throughout human history. Speaking of the world, it's quite the spectacle. It's pretty large, pretty substantial, and rather interesting. It has well-defined areas and a delightful ambiance. Unlike most other big-ass RPGs, I didn't find myself fast-traveling terribly much. I wanted to soak in driving through rainy nights, walking under neon and concrete, and speeding through abandoned, hazy industrial outskirts on my pimped out electric sex bike. I wanted to see the nooks and crannies, and there's reason to. There are a ton of hidden items. There are legendary bionic parts, iconic weapons, unique clothing is littered around everywhere. You can find endgame hand blades sitting in a foot locker outside a building. And so it's worth driving around, investigating some alleys, digging through the garbage, and just generally seeing what the game space is all about. Does that kid have a gun? It is with that we come to the end of the glowing merriment, into the brutal truth hidden in the dank innards of 2077. The driving is bad. It's not good. The bikes drive like cars, and the cars drive like boats. Everything has kind of a loose association with the ground. It's fine busting down the highway or through the desert, but driving through downtown is kind of a nightmare. If you manage to deftly weave your way through the actually impressive volume of traffic, you'll likely just tag a speed bump or clip into the ground and go flying through the air like goddamn Team Rocket. The bikes don't really lean. They turn like cars, and they drift like cars. Don't do this, by the way. In real life, you'll high side, get flung off, and have to spend some time with a lovely gentleman in a white coat who's going to try his damnedest to get you new skin. Also, the mini-map is way too zoomed in, and it makes it impossible to tell when you're actually supposed to turn. So navigating to an objective usually involves very late, very unnecessary drifting, or blasting through an intersection at 5,000 miles an hour, using oncoming traffic to brake, and then doing the world's most embarrassing three-point turn in order to make the easy left that your minimap decided to let you know about a millisecond before the fact. Zoom out the minimap, please. If I'm going the proper speed, maybe the driving won't feel like I've been cursed by an evil power slide genie. That aside, I like almost everything else about how the game plays. You have a few primary playstyles, which I found pretty universally amusing. Whether it was ripping a turret off its mounting and peppering militia members with HE rounds, or sneaking around snapping necks and popping heads, or beating people to death with cybernetically enhanced monkey arms, or just being a good old-fashioned mall ninja, I was always having a pretty good time. Even on hard, you outpace the difficulty pretty quick. I always took decent damage and needed to be kind of quick on heals, but I was also a human tornado, leaving effortless death and destruction behind me. Your cyborgliness is well integrated into your approach in solving problems. My first character focused on hacking and sneaking, so I mainlined upgrades for my OS, legs, and eyes. With that, I could mark and detect enemies, disable or kill them instantly through the internet, and access areas that gave me a distinct advantage. For instance, I had springy legs that would allow me to drop in through the roof, grab my objectives, and hippity-hop on out again. By the endgame of this character, stealth was not a priority. Hacking is busted good. At this point, I could casually stroll up to a group of enemies, hack their shared network, lower their resistances, electrocute a third of them, burn the cyber eyes out of the other third, and program the last third to kill themselves. With the hacks in this game, you can become an unstoppable tech god. Having had enough of telling people to die and them saying, "That's a great idea, bro, let's do it," I decided to make the exact opposite character. A punchy, hack and slash, run and gun lady. On this side of things, I got some subdermal armor, had a second heart put in, put servos in my arms, and removed my ability to hack, replacing it with a Sandevistan, a unit implanted in the brain that causes a person to have access to bullet time for some reason. This leads to some pretty predictable results. Clipping people's heads off with a katana before their detection meter fills and they notice that you're there. The weapons are pretty interesting, including some standard real-world analog weapons, firing old-fashioned bullets that can ricochet around and be bounced around corners, if you are so inclined. But that seems a little 20th century to me. And if my forefathers knew that a better way to kill things had been invented and I wasn't using it, they'd be ashamed of me. So we have smart weapons and tech weapons. Smart weapons are straightforward. They fire a guided smart projectile that follows the tracking data gathered from your hands and eyes to shoot people. Around corners, over cover, homing into the face. It's pretty great with a sniper, but it's not super effective. They often do less damage to make up for the fact that they're an aimbot. Tech weapons, however, are fucking boss. They fire exotic projectiles, have multiple firing modes, and when charged, do a fuck ton of damage and ignore cover. Not just cover, actually, seemingly world geometry as a whole. I shot a guy through a concrete parking garage wall. You get a shotgun that lights people on fire or poisons them or something, and then you aim down the sights and it becomes a reality-penetrating linear particle accelerator. I like that. The roundup is that it's clearly a great game. It just wasn't finished in time. It wasn't polished up, and sometimes, I'll be honest, it looks like garbage. But the polish will come in time, and the content will be there waiting for it. It has an excellent narrative, a number of solid characters, good gameplay variety, and relatively few detractors that aren't technical. I've played 130 hours or so, and I'll be back when it's looking shinier and more people have played it to really dig into the narrative and metaphorical structure that CDPR have built around such a charismatic late 80s tabletop RPG foundation. Until such time,
Diving in 3,